Hello guys, and welcome to this first SAS task. Very simple task just to get you going. So we'll just be importing some data and getting some distribution figures for some of our variables. So if we just go new program on Enterprise Guide, basically the code editor comes up. So let me just set some global options here. So recall the discussion on global options. So I'm just going to do OBS equals max, then page size equals 100, then line size equals 140, and then number to make sure that the page numbers get printed out on the output. Okay, so don't forget the semicolon to close off your options statement. Very important detail. And now let's just start a new data step, which will come to that later, but it's basically the way to, how you process your data. So if we just go data product underscore type, so we're saying SAS, hey, I want to create this new data set called product underscore type. We then use the in file statement and then followed by a path, in between commas, to just specify where our input data is located. So in this case, we're just saying, hey, get the data from this product underscore type.csv file, which is located under that path. Okay, we then need to specify a couple of options. So let's start off with DSD, so it's delimiter sensitive data, which means there's delimiters in your data, and then DLM equals the actual delimiter, which is a comma. Then we just use the first OBS equals 2 option to say or to specify that basically the first row, or just headers, just variable names, and the actual data can be found on the second observation. We then used a length statement to specify a length for our variables. So by default, SAS sets that at 8 bytes. We need a bit more in this case, so we'll just use that. And then we use the input statement followed by the variable names. In this particular case, because they're character variables, by the $sign to specify that they're character variables. And then we just end our data step with just the run statement. Okay. We then use a proc print. So it's a procedure to just print out the first few observations. So if you just go proc print data equals product underscore type, we then specify, set number of observations. So with the OBS equals 15 option. So we just want to print out the first 15 observations of that data set. Via the title statement that you can see there, just use that to document our output. So printing out the first few observations, that might be a useful thing. Close off your proc print with the run statement, and basically we're good to go. Okay, so we've imported, so the first bit of our task has been carried out. We can run this, and we run this by just hitting run or hitting F8. You can see that the icon there for the SAS program goes sort of green. That's telling you that SAS or SAS Enterprise Guide's running that code. Might take a bit of time depending on the actual import. In this case, it's a small data set with a few thousands of observations, so it shouldn't take that long. And there you go. You get some results. And you get the printout of the first 15 observations. Now, this is just the first bit of the task that we were sort of going through. The second thing that we're asked to come up with is the actual natural distribution of how many products can be found under each product type. So how many different types of pastas or rice can I see or find there on that file. So let me just use the title statement again to specify that I'll be calculating global category frequencies, and then I'll just use a proc frec, which basically gives you frequencies of categorical variables. So I'll just go proc frec data equals product underscore type, and then I'll use a table statement to specify the actual variable that I want to tabulate. In this case, I want to tabulate the product underscore type variable. So that's what I use. I then just close it off with the run statement. Run this bit of code. So I can also run what you've just seen there. I can also just run this section of code. Okay. So I run that, and there you go. That's the there you go. We've got the results there, and that's basically what we were looking for. So how many different types of products have we got under each category? Okay, so that's pretty much it, really, in terms of the initial task and what we wanted to come up with. Just a couple of options. So the proc frag, you could add some options such as the no cum and no percent. So no cumulative figures and no percentage figures are to be produced. That's where you specify into SAS. So you can rerun this and see how much, how this makes basically how this makes you get a different output, really. So there you go. You see that now you get pretty much the same category frequencies, except that there's no sort of cumulative percentages, figures, really. So that's just a useful example of how you can use SAS and SAS Enterprise Guide to just very quickly input some data. Now you should check your log. Very important that you check your log files and that you just check that, hey, the input went well. In this particular case, we can see that this data set was created. It's under the work library, so bear that in mind. So that work library basically means it's a temporary data set, so we lose it when the session ends. We can actually go to our output data tab and just inspect our data, so you can see it. You can see that there, and you can just use that to also check that all went well. Okay, so that's